Good to go. Open book here.
Good morning, friends. Last week I had the pleasure of taking a deep dive with Eric Evans, who's the CEO of Green Valor Capital, and and this is really a perfect extension of that discussion last week. And joining us today is Jeff Tomasik, who is a business founder and the president of a company in the B2C space that I think you'll all enjoy hearing about. So, Eric, why don't you get us started and introduce Jeff and your relationship? How did you come to meet?
Sure. It was through a mutual friend that is in the New York recruiting world that currently is holed up in Miami, enjoying, I'm guessing, sunny beaches based on her tan. And she kind of apprised me of the situation that Ambros, the banana whiskey company, is in as far as being able to raise capital and take next steps after developing an end product that I have with me here today and is quite delicious. Um, and Jeff and I met earlier in this week and kind of relayed the vision that he sees and hopes for going forward. And today, what we really want to do is talk about the journey to get to today and the challenges in manufacturing a unique product like this, the iterations that he's had to go through to get to this end product, and kind of the challenges from day one until the current challenge of being able to extend capital funding and move forward with the business model. So Jeff, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
Jeff, did you
And
notice that Eric drank responsibly last night? He tasted responsibly the sample that you sent him.
I hope you
yeah,
take responsibly again tonight and tomorrow and the next day.
yeah, there will be many nights here.
Exactly. That's what it's there for, right? Consumer products supposed to finish the bottle and keep moving.
And consume again. I like it.
Um, yeah. So ask away. Any questions you guys have, let me know. I can walk you through the process.
So day one, you guys came up with the idea. What was the first kind of obstacle that you encountered, and how did you guys go about moving past that?
Well, I think whenever you start a business, and a lot of business owners who are creating consumer products, especially, are somewhat look at themselves as an artist without any art skills, I guess you could say, right? I couldn't paint a picture for you if my life depended on it too, but creating a product to me is that form of artistry. And I think the naive mentality of wanting to create a product is really what gets you from this impossibility to reality and stretching, like you said, those challenges in between. We saw a problem in the space, as I told you before, that there was no real ingredient-focused products that were leading the market in spirits, as there are in the beverage space, as well as the non-alcoholic or the non-alcoholic beverage space and the food space. And we wanted to really pioneer that technology. And after researching extensively and traveling, trying to figure out someone who could do it and help us with it, realizing that no one could do it, I think the first challenge was like, okay, wow, do we dive in head first here and really go for it, or do we let things go by the wayside and not really get involved in the major challenge of trying to do something first? And I think the challenge of doing something first, the reward can be incredible financially, mentally, in a business wise, that the doing something first can be an unbelievable feeling, but it can, like you said, have major challenges. There's really no blueprint to do something first. We really tried some small sample size. To be honest with you, this business didn't start as a business. We kind of had like a what if idea and tried little tiny samples. We used my partner's kitchen as our first lab and trying to experiment with things and see if some of our concoctions could work, infusing fresh fruit into whiskey. And we gave some samples to friends and family and did their second iteration, the third iteration. And once people started to come back to us and said, could I have a second bottle? We were like, okay, wow, this is interesting. We were kind of just messing around. Let's tweak it a little bit here. We gave out a few more. And after people really started to come back and ask for more and giving us such positive responses, we were like, okay, wow, maybe we're really onto something. And I think it was just a decision-making point where you and your partners or whatever business it might be look at each other and said, we're going to do this. We've got to go all in. We got to not look back. We have to fully focus on what it's going to do, not plan on it being ready in a year or 6 months or 18 months or whatever it is that you hope for. Just dive in head first and completely commit, and then hope that everything works out as planned, as close as you can possibly get it. And that was really the first challenge for us, was trying to mentally get there. And then, of course, really putting together the process and the machinery behind it became a huge obstacle, something that we had to work really hard on, bring in third-party engineering teams, use my partner, travel around the world, use different consultants to really get to the end game. But that was essentially the difficult part of that is similar to anything else that you're creating. This was the fact that we really had no blueprint, and the trial and error period was a little bit longer than we would have enjoyed. Like I said, mainly because we were doing it first, but the end product was really the juice is worth the squeeze, I guess you could say.
Hey, Jeff, what about your background and education gave you the feeling that and confidence to move forward with this project?
So I got my bachelor's degree at Oregon State University. I then got a master's degree from the International University of Monaco in the south of France, focused in luxury business and marketing. And really, I think traveling, especially overseas in Europe and going to a place like Monaco, which is kind of the pinnacle, I guess, of financial success, you could say, touching and feeling a lot of the things that I thought in my middle-class upbringing were so far away and impossible to ever achieve. That gave me an opportunity to really meet people and touch the things that I thought I only saw back then. This was pre-social media and Instagram, that were completely far-fetched and almost an impossibility, kind of a white whale that could never be achieved. And I got to touch them, feel them, interact with them, and it became so much more real. At that point in my life, I didn't really have as many doubts as I think I would have had previously, because I had really seen and met people and said, oh, this is, met successful people. And I'd realized they were just a guy just like me, or a woman, and they got to achieve what they wanted to, but they were no more or less just a person like I was. So that really braced the reality of it down to me. I then moved to Las Vegas eventually, started off in nightlife, eventually became an executive with Hakkasan Group, the largest nightlife and hospitality company here in Las Vegas. And after ample venues, being a part of ample venues, from nightclubs to pool clubs to restaurants, I really got a knack for the consumer side of hospitality, food and beverage. And that gave me really kind of a glimpse into what I knew the customers were demanding and wanting, and how to interact with them, and seeing the feeling that they got with different types of products. And I really knew at that point that ultimately this product, as Eric said earlier too, was a home run. And there's a lot of components of having a successful business, but when it came to the idea of the product, we knew that the idea of the product could definitely work if we had the opportunity to really create what we hoped we could.
So when you were sitting in the kitchen, was there some kind of like, how you'll find like the story of home brewery kind of guys that go down and set up the stuff and make their own brew, and they're 1,000 square foot, 800 square foot apartment. Is that kind of the lifestyle that it began at, where you had just this like small little distillery in his kitchen and you guys were kind of just messing around?
100%. I mean, just to clarify what Ambros was created to the listeners that are viewers who are watching this, is that we wanted to create 100% fresh fruit infused whiskey that had no added sugars, no artificial flavors, no natural flavors, no juices, no purees, no nothing, just flavored with 100% fresh fruit and completely shelf stable. And the science behind that was very difficult. And as you said, we kitchen labbed these samples for a very long time, and it was two separate problems that had to be accomplished. One, could it be accomplished at all? And two, could we do it at scale? So the first one that we had to figure out was, could this actually be done? And then the second one was, okay, after it was actually perfected in small batches, could we replicate that with large scale machinery and do this to scale in a mass market consumer product? So the first problem that we have, you're right, it was exactly like that. We did hundreds and hundreds of variations from different types of bananas, different amount of bananas, different types of whiskey, so on and so forth. The variables were very vast. So, I don't even lost track about how many iterations we had till we got to the final recipe.
Well, scientists here.
Exactly. Hundreds and hundreds of scientists. And, to be truly honest with you, I am not the scientist here by any means. My partner in the business is, and he has an engineering and a science background. He was really the one who was pioneering the science behind this. And we were it was a taste test model, right? Like in food and beverage, there's not a right or a wrong answer when it comes to a flavor profile. It's an opinion-based thing. So, but the science behind it is right or wrong. So it's interesting. We had those two different different avenues of thought process, right? It was the science part, and then it was the human interaction of taste profile. So the human interaction was never, once we got the actual science down, then it was like, okay, do we shift the banana taste above a little bit, or the whiskey taste below a little bit, or adjust the proofing, or how do we want that final recipe to taste after we accomplish the actual science, knowing that we could actually produce this product.
And kind of as an aside, the thing I really liked as I sampled the drink was the fact I didn't really get that drunk. If I have a normal glass of whiskey, I'm pretty knocked out. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. With this, I was able to have one, and it was very much a sipping, enjoyable experience where I could have had another, and I didn't wake up with any issues. Like I liked the fact that it didn't knock me out. So
I think lighter and non-alcoholic beverages right now our popularity are rising very high too. But I think lighter enjoyment is what really we're focusing on here too. So a normal quote unquote whiskey is 80 proof usually. We are 60 proof, which is still legally a whiskey, but you get really a lot more of the flavor profile. There's plenty of alcohol in it to get the effects of the alcohol that some people obviously are drinking alcohol for. But you still get this incredible flavor profile, and you don't get those added sugars and that syrupy taste that you would normally get on an artificially or quote unquote naturally flavored infused product or flavored product. We get to give you those real, actual, natural or true fresh banana particles in there, which gives it the flavor without all the negative effects of added sugars and syrups.
Lighter enjoyment, is that a term that you just coined, or is it kind of a generally accepted industry term?
I can't take credit for that. Lighter enjoyment is something that is really that consumers are really seeking out right now too. They don't necessarily, I mean, look, there is a consumer who wants the 90 proof, 100 proof raw whiskey for sure. There is also a high consumer base that want to enjoy spirits throughout the night. Maybe they want to have a few more drinks, and they don't want to get completely out of control. They do want the flavor to stick out a bit more. Right. And 60 proof is still a legally a whiskey and a high amount of alcohol. So, I guess it's between a normal whiskey and between an aperitif or anything like that too. So 60 proof is still considered. And then we use our base is a 3-year aged Irish whiskey. So the taste is much smoother. The water used in Irish whiskey really yields it to a sweeter flavor profile, attracting it to the fruit, which gives it a really rich fruit, smooth flavor profile rather than a harsh, unaged whiskey. So the base whiskey infused with 100% fresh fruit that is aged 3 years, it gives it such an easy flavor profile and makes it a lot easier to drink, whether you're sipping it, putting it in a cocktail, taking a shot, whatever it may be. It gives it the versatility to be able to use in a lot of different ways.
So going back to kind of the challenges in the journey, you kind of mentioned getting to the second phase, which was kind of mass production of this product that you tested. Take us through that kind of journey of where you said, now it's time to go all in, look at a property, look at getting equipment, look at building out the capacity. How are we going to do that? And kind of how you did get there and get through that challenge.
It's a lot of judgment, right? It's difficult, I think, in a business, even when you already have sales and trajectory in the past, to measure how you're going to do in 2 to 3 to 4 years. And remember, when you're building a facility, you can't build it to meet what your sales are going to be year 1 or year 2. You really have to build it far out. So I think sometimes it's difficult to wrap your head around and imagining you need a building to scale and building it so that someone can either buy you out down the road, or you can continue doing this business 4, 5, 6 years from now too. So we needing to build a facility to scale, and engineering it was still some of the same issues for us. Was how big can we go? How big should we go? And then can we do this to scale? I mean, our engine, just like the options of the initial flavor creation, we went through almost 100 iterations of our facility too, is placing this here, adding this here, moving this around, using the space properly, going through the process in our heads to scale, walking through it, seeing how we can improve it, changing a machine here, adding something here to really make the process as smooth and easy as possible, semi-automated, so we didn't need as many employees. And like I said, building it to prepare to grow. So I think the same thing was the biggest issue in prior, was there was really no blueprint for that. We built the facility in Las Vegas, and especially some of the building codes from fire, which is normally one of the obviously the most important oversight for alcohol because of the proofing of alcohol and it being so flammable. And then normally not used to dealing with the health department because we were using fresh fruit. So that was a interesting dynamic of trying to get all of the commissions together so we could move past and pass all the codes because they weren't normally used to doing business together. But after we had planned things out and using our construction team and our engineers and a lot of it's a slow moving pace. If anyone's ever built a manufacturing facility or a house or anything, it is a very, very slow process. And the more people you have involved, the slower it gets. So we had to have a lot of people involved to accomplish this. And I think patience becomes your number one problem, because when you're a business owner and you finally, I guess, lit that switch in our head, we had, at the point that we were building the facility, we essentially had the product ready. But we couldn't mass produce it or produce it properly without all of the machinery. And so we had the finished product in our hand and just wanted to go, give it to the customer, market it, put it out there, get sales, be excited. But we actually had to wait about 18 months till we could really, lay it out to the consumer and put it out there because of the gaps in engineering and creating the facility to do it at mass scale.
So it took only 18 months kind of from the beginning to having the building kind of dialed in?
Yeah, so we actually started the business in August of 2016, and we didn't launch until the very end of 2018.
Yeah.
So, and even before we started the actual business in August, we had started messing around with, like I said, giving little samples to friends and family before that, just testing it out to see if we should do this. But August 2016 is when we really decided to dive in head first. And then we didn't launch, like I said, to the very end of 2018. So 2019 was really our first year of true business.
Okay,
so it took a while. Gap in timing there, that was tough.
Yeah, so you got to 2019. Now you had the facility, you had the product. What was the next challenge that you guys had to overcome? What was your 2019 story?
I think building a business is a lot like a car, right? There's a lot of very important pieces that are very separate from each other, but without one, nothing else really works. And learning while you're in the market is difficult too, because you want to just keep moving instead of pivoting, but a business owner has to be ready to do so. So I think we really put out there in the very beginning of how to get distribution, what that looks like, how we should price it at retail, how we should price it to venues, what the consumer really wants from this, how to educate the customer on how 100% fresh fruit infusion is different from any other flavor technique that was already on the market. And then we really focused on, when we launched, was getting the everyday hospitality employee behind the product, right? We did a lot of gifts for bartenders, a lot of gifts for servers and managers and retail employees. And we did these custom big gift boxes for the people who don't necessarily normally get gift boxes, right? Not the major influencer or the owner or anything like that. We gave it to the employees who are actually really going to be interacting with the product. And we got the major hospitality communities in Las Vegas, on the Strip and off the Strip, really behind the product. And that created a tidal wave of success for us and momentum when we first got out the gate. And that took a lot of hard work and effort. Believe it or not, our gift box was a custom, it looked like a fresh fruit box. You would get it like a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's with actual real fresh bananas in them to really symbolize the freshness and reiterate that there was actual real fresh bananas in there. So when you're putting fresh fruit in a gift box, you can't prep them ahead of time. You need to prep them that day of, especially with bananas. So we had to be prepping these gift boxes every single time we were doing like a pre-shift or any of these things to gift. And everyone got a sample of the product as well as fresh bananas in this gift box. It was really cool. And that really communicated what we'd accomplished and how we separate ourselves from everybody else. And like I said, we did that for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees, mainly bartenders, servers, who are really going to be interacting with the customer and want to be able to share the story of Ambros. And obviously us being local in Las Vegas was a huge portion. So the first few months that we were out was just focused on our first market, which was Nevada, mainly in Las Vegas. And then after that, we grew to California and New York.
Jeff, has that turned out to be an effective strategy?
I think for us in the very beginning, it was, we were trying to be successful, but also learn. I think everyone's year, sometimes products absolutely skyrocket and everything works out perfectly year one. We didn't necessarily have a background specifically in the beverage space. I guess we were both in and around the beverage space, but hadn't ever owned a company that actually sold spirits directly. So we were really learning about how the customer, just like when we were creating the product, there wasn't a blueprint to market to people who wanted 100% fresh fruit infused spirits and how to communicate that properly. So we went our own route, and I think it was very good for us to learn what people wanted, how the customers wanted to drink it versus how necessarily we thought they should drink it, what was working well the most with the people behind the bar, serving it, etc. So that was a great tool for us to not only create momentum, but to learn a lot. It was effective for us at this point now. Like I said, which we learned a lot, and now we're using that as we kind of pivot and alter our marketing to where the world is now and how we should move forward to really gain the sales volumes that a business like ours should have.
So, I mean, I think that would be, you overcame sequential challenges and then you entered into this year. What was your going into 2020 game plan? And then how did COVID, I mean, obviously the distribution channels through bars, restaurants, hotels, cruise ships got impacted it. But what was the game plan going into 2020 and how have you guys pivoted since then?
Well, like I said, there was a lot of stuff that we learned. We have since, as you guys have seen, it's yet to be released, but we're updating our label a bit and changing a little bit of look and feel of the brand. And that was our main mantra for going into 2020. Ideally, we were looking to do that around Memorial Day to July 4th, somewhere in that window. That obviously got put completely on hold.
How has the pandemic affected you, Jeff?
COVID is difficult, right? I mean, the large brands, I think, were able to take advantage of the grocery store explosion that was there. I do think a couple positives came out of COVID for the alcohol industry. One being that the e-commerce sales ability for the spirits industry was completely archaic. And COVID fast-tracked that, I think, by 12 to 18 months, maybe even 2 years of progress, because all of these major brands needed to figure out e-commerce as soon as possible. Now, there's been a couple platforms that have really gotten popular before COVID and even grown bigger over there too, like Drizzly, which is like a Postmates for alcohol. Some of these other back-end brands like Thirsty, who build e-commerce platforms for brands on their website. But there's a lot of logistical issues with e-commerce on how things can be delivered, who your distributors are, shipping across states. You can't use large shippers like FedEx and UPS. So there's a lot of regulation that I think is going to come to fruition very soon and make it a lot easier for e-commerce to work for the spirits industry, which has always been extremely difficult for us too, whether it be high shipping time or high shipping costs, long shipping times, et cetera, which for now in the modern day customer is unacceptable, right? You can't tell someone that it's going to be $14.99 shipping and it's going to take them 7 to 10 business days. That's not reality anymore for a 2020, 2021 customer in the United States, right? It's, I'll give you 2 days to get it to me max. I'll give you maybe 99 cents to do it. Figure it out. That's their general Amazon mentality that they have now. So I think as far as challenges for us, the large brands are really able to take advantage of the large grocery store boom, because grocery stores were getting riddled with that too. Retail, the off-premise side of spirits, really boomed during the pandemic, obviously, because people were making cocktails at home, figuring out new recipes, drinking at home because they couldn't go anywhere else. So the on-premise marketing side of it has changed completely in bars, restaurants, nightclubs, lounges, pools, etc. And that will continue to change for a long time. A lot of brands have shredded their budget when it came to that and will do so next year until I think a real footing gets back there, and having the ultimate focus on the off-premise retail side of things. But for us, we shifted to the accounts that are really still working for us, right? We shifted to our large off-premise retail account, focused on getting the most out of those that we possibly could. And now that bars and restaurants are starting to come back in the states that we have, we're starting to put a little bit of focus back into those as well. But don't get me wrong, those months of April, May, June, July were extremely difficult. And this is a volume business. Just like a restaurant or anywhere else too, a bar, this is a volume business, right? If you take 50% capacity out of a restaurant, there's only so good that they can do. Same thing with the spirits. Without major distribution and tons of grocery store chains across the country, you really get limited on how much success you can have. But we took this time to really learn a lot about our sector, where we think this business is going to go in a digital platform going forward, how we can do better, knowing that everything will eventually come back to normal. Use this time to you don't normally have time as a business to really sit back or refocus and look at your business without having tons of employees. As entrepreneurs and an early stage brand like this too, we as co-founders, we wear a lot of hats, right? One day we're sales, one day we're marketing, one day we're HR, one day we're accounting. So we got a chance to really take a step backwards, slow down a second, look at all aspects of our business to really streamline things and focus on what we needed to do to be successful. And we took the challenges as a little bit of benefits for us to really plan for the future.
Perfect. Now, John, do you have any other questions? Because again, I try to put this on a platform of social media where I know the MTV mind frame of like 2 to 5 minutes is generally your extent. So 5 to 10 is what I'll post out there. Nice. John likes being a little more liberal and kind of having a full interview for 30 minutes or so on the back end that people can access to kind of get everything unedited for the most part. John, do you have anything else, any other questions on past experiences or something like that going into this?
I could spend a day with Jeff. I'm intrigued by how much, Jeff, you've learned in the last couple of years as you tried to fulfill this dream, and you've learned a great deal. Is that what your podcast is about? I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, my podcast is called the Residency Podcast. It's one of the largest podcasts coming out of Las Vegas right now. Yeah. We actually are 3 entrepreneurs who are doing the same thing, going headfirst into our industries and trying to be successful in a lot of different ways and interested in a lot of different things. There's investments that I have in other industries that I like to dabble in, and obviously Ambros being my number one focus, and we're all kind of similar in that route. So our podcast is really about the top story, going over the top stories in hospitality, entertainment business, and pop culture, bringing in incredible guests that are either working or playing in Las Vegas, and putting out a podcast episode every week and giving our opinions on what's going on, how we can do better, and obviously the stories and interactions of our guests who've been, top fitness stars and entrepreneurs and athletes, successful entertainers, major influencers in pop culture and social media. So we've had a lot of different perspectives on how people have been successful and accomplished in their industry, what they've learned as well, their opinion on our city in Las Vegas, and obviously their opinion on current news stories that are going on in those specific industries. So it's been a blast to kind of adapt that. And I think the podcast mentality for me is an opportunity to learn every week. Some people think it's a little odd, I guess, to write an outline and plan something to talk about, even with your friends, not even with a guest. But I think that leads to enlightened conversations where you can learn a lot. So I think just the practice of putting together an episode every single week, focusing on stories that are going on currently or with a guest and their experiences, you end up learning a lot. And after 52 episodes in a year, you look back and say, oh, wow, I really benefited greatly from this. And ideally, hopefully my listeners did too. And I had a blast while doing it. Our podcast really has no filter. So we get to go nuts and go hard and explain things in our own layman terms as well too, which I think is a lot of fun. And from our perspective, so our 3 hosts are in 3 different spaces in their lives too, where, I'm married with, and my wife is pregnant, and my co-host, he just had a baby. Our other co-host is completely single. We're all in different points in our entrepreneurial career as well too. So we have a lot of different.
Are you all very jealous of your single friend that still gets to go have fun?
He lives a different life. That is for sure. From a guy who has a pregnant wife and my other friend who has a newborn baby.
It's fun too, right?
It's a lot of different lifestyle changes. So it's a blast, and it's been a really cool way for us to interact with great people that we are interested in learning from. And I hope it gets as big as we think it can be. And ideally that benefits everybody on having a platform to really communicate what we're doing in the future as well too. So it's been a lot of fun, and we're excited. And my life really surrounds around my soon to be baby that's coming in March, and Ambros Whiskey infusions as we head into 2021 and get ready to really change the industry, and as well as kind of bringing this podcast to fruition. So that's my plate for right now. Obviously, Ambros Whiskey infusions is the top priority, and this is where my heart lies and my focus lies in the business. So it's really all in on this idea, and knowing that success can come in the short term or the medium term or the long term. Like we talked about earlier, just diving in head first and having complete and utter belief that somehow it'll turn out as we expected, and hopefully even better.
Well, Jeff, congratulations on these so many areas of your life that you've got wonderful things happening. Eric, thank you for introducing us, and let's bring this to a close today. And thank you for your time.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on too. And hopefully I can do it again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jeff.